Hey, welcome. This is EdwardLinder, and today we're interviewing
Clay Capra.
Hey, Clay. So tell us who you are and what you do and where you're from.
Sure. Well, my name's Clay Capra, and I'm currently the sales director at Linder Games. And I'm from right here, Minnesota, Twin Cities. Been born and raised here my whole life. And a little bit about what I do, basically. Basically, it's my job to do sales for Linder Games, and so that my main role is I network with the different game distributors, and I network with all the different game retailers, and form those relationships and drive sales for our games.
How long have you been with Linder?
Probably about 2.5, 3 years, right about in there.
Have you always been in sales then?
I kind of have worn two hats in my life. I've kind of bounced between the insurance world, because my dad's a big successful insurance agent, and games, which is kind of my life's hobby and passion. So, but yes, I've had several sales jobs. So I've sold insurance, very intangible, product. And then now I'm blessed to be able to sell games, which is a much more tangible, but also something I really love and am passionate about. And so it's, yeah.
So what is the biggest challenge in the sales of games and during this pandemic world that we live in?
Well, I would say the biggest challenge with sales during the pandemic is really kind of the fact that the game stores mostly haven't been able to do events, right? And so I know that recently now the game stores are kind of opening up again, which is great, but we just can't do events like we did in the past. And so that part has been kind of a difficult challenge. And also our big events in the game industry, our game conventions, have all had to go to online. And so that's a big adjustment and challenge as well. So it's been very different. The good news is it seems like a lot of people are playing games, though. A lot of people are kind of home more than they normally are and have decided, hey, since we're home, let's break out and play some games. So that part of it has been good. Yeah.
I did my first virtual board game event. There's a gaming convention that's going on this weekend, and our mutual friend Seppi reached out last night, and there's a new platform in town in Minnesota that started up called Sovereign.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a really great virtual gaming room that they've created, probably some of the best I've ever seen, better than Tabletop Simulator.
Wow.
So we played that, but we also used Discord as the interface for the convention.
Yep.
So it was interesting to participate in the virtual event. Obviously, nothing beats a game in person, but
right.
But it was pretty interesting.
We're doing what we can do, yeah.
Right.
I've been doing some gaming over Discord with friends,
yeah,
for sure. And you're right. I mean, you still get some gaming in, but it does have a different feel. So I think many of us kind of are looking forward to maybe being able to get together again in the future. Sure. But yeah, it'll happen eventually.
So, what is your favorite game or games?
Wow.
Just similar to me, right? So I have lots of games that I love.
Yep.
But what's your go-to games?
Absolutely.
Like if you're going to introduce someone to a new game, or if you're going to play with a bunch of seasoned gamers.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm going to break this into a couple categories.
Okay.
So foremost, as you know, I am the head salesperson at Linder Games. So I'm going to talk about Linder Games first. And then I'll talk about games outside of Linder Games. So probably my favorite game at Linder Games currently is probably, I'd have to say it's probably Root. There's so much replay value there. Root's really a game that you can play over and over and over again, because you can always switch factions and get kind of a whole new experience, and there's so much depth to it. So Root is probably my favorite Linder Games. And if I was going to introduce someone, I'd probably introduce them to Fort, which is a game where you're hanging out with your buddies, you're hanging out with your bestie friends, you're eating some pizza, collecting toys, building a fort. And so that's probably what I would introduce someone to there. Now, outside of Linder Games, if I was going to introduce someone to a new game, I'd probably show them Ticket to Ride. because that is just, it's a great it's a great introductory game because most people, it's easy enough, people pick it up right away. It gives you that solid goal to go for. You've got to complete these routes, and you're just trying to collect certain colors of cards to match up with those routes. And so
I have a confession. I have never played that game.
Oh, hey. Well, Ed, we will have to play
We'll
sometime.
have to play.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's one of those games that they sell it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And they had an anniversary edition that came out, and I thought about picking it up, but I've never played it. It's so weird.
Yeah. A couple other ones for introducing people. I would introduce people to Codenames.
Oh, yeah.
I would introduce people to Carcassonne. So those are a couple of the games I'd probably introduce you to. Now, outside of that, a couple of my absolute favorite games is Scythe. Is probably one of my favorite games, mainly because for me it has a lot of nostalgia. It has because my other real favorite game is Dune, D-U-N-E, which was recently republished, but Dune was really ahead of its time because it had the different player factions. It kind of had some of that extreme asymmetry like Linder games back then, so every faction has a different play style. And there's bidding involved. I love the combat mechanic in Dune. Anyway, Scythe has that same combat mechanic from Dune.
Oh, cool.
So that's part of why I really like it. And then I love so many different games. Scythe also kind of has that Euro collecting resources building style. And I love miniatures too. So you've got the mech miniature. So Scythe kind of put all those things together. I'm like, okay. So that's why I love Scythe, is kind of because it reminds me of so many other games. Yeah.
Well, and the world building that they did, right, is so fantastic.
Yeah.
And they were able to really continue to stack with the expansions from the 2 and then the third one, which is sort of a semi-legacy type of game. And we played it 2 years ago, I think, my wife and I, during the weekend, and it was just really fun. I mean, we played 8 games of Scythe during the weekend.
Yeah, it's really immersive.
Yeah.
I mean, that artwork captures that world, and you feel immersive. So, yeah, it's great.
So first off, I also want to thank Linder Games for giving us a copy to give away during our contest in October, and for VAST, the Mysterious Manor.
VAST, the Mysterious Manor, yeah.
So here's the other thing, going back to what you were talking about with Linder Games, and then we'll give our copy away to one of our fans. The thing about every game, I think, that Linder's come out with that I know of, there's so much game in that box that you get.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I opened VAST and the Crystal Caverns, when I got that game during the Kickstarter, I opened it and I just remember there was so much more game than the regular base game itself.
Yeah.
You know, there's a bunch of expansions and variety within the game that I think most people don't really understand until they get one of the games from Linder.
Sure.
And I think that is something special, because I think people can, you know, play a game a couple of times and that was fun, and then move on. But the introductions to expansions, and especially with Root, right, is all of the different factions that you can play, so anyway, I just wanted to kind of point that out.
Well, Linder Games were really a small design studio that really puts a lot of time and effort into the craft in creating a game that has an immersive story behind it, that has kind of a whole world behind it, and a lot of time and care is put into those games to create a great play experience for you and your friends out there. Yeah.
So our winner is?
Well, the winner is Luke Munson.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Luke, I'll be reaching out to figure out where you're located, and we'll get that copy to you. Awesome. This has been really fun.
Yeah.
It's been really fun.
And you'll love it, Luke. Mysterious Manor is an awesome game where a paladin goes adventuring into this haunted manor trying to slay the giant spider, and there's skeletons that live in the manor, and it's you'll have a great time playing that one.
It is such a good game. So good.
Yeah.
So good. What's on the horizon with Linder right now? I know that you guys recently, or I should say earlier this year, you had your Kickstarter for Oath, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just came out with Fort.
Yep.
What else can you kind of say about Oath and where it's at?
Sure.
And can you give us a little hint on some other stuff?
Sure. So, so you're exactly right, Ed, about Oath. So the next kind of major game that Linder Games will be publishing is called Oath. And that will be coming out probably towards the end of the first quarter of 2021, we're probably shipping to backers around March. It's not for sure, don't hold me to that, but it's roughly first quarter. And Oath is a really cool game because Oath is a game that remembers a little bit about the history, okay? And so what I mean by that is your Oath game will actually evolve over time from game to game. Now, it's not a legacy game, and it's not a campaign game, so you don't have to play 10 games to reach a conclusion of a campaign or anything. Players can jump in and out, but what happens is each game you play, we're going to look at the board state at the end, and we're going to modify the game for the next game. So it's always changing and evolving, which is going to be really cool. And then the other thing that I absolutely love about Oath is that one of the players gets to be Chancellor. All right, and so Chancellor's kind of like being the king or queen, and so if we're playing a game, Ed, and you win the game, that means you get to be Chancellor for the next game. And I tell you what, Ed, I want to play again because now I want to be Chancellor. All right, and just a little bit about how the game evolves. There's different factions in the game, and so like one of the factions is the Beasts. And so at the end, there is a deck in the game, and based on, let's say, the beasts control certain areas, we might add a few more beasts cards into the deck, and that's really going to change things up for the next game. So so we've really packed a lot of replay value into that one. Okay.
Any ETA when we might see it come to the stores?
Probably a month or two after we ship to the Kickstarter backers. Right, so that's probably, if I had to guess, sometime during the second quarter of 2021 is when it would go to retail stores. So after that, after Oath, of course, our founder, Patrick, is always working on some things. Patrick definitely has a few games in the works that he is working on designing, and we might have an expansion for some of our current games that could possibly come out in the future. So that's what that's what I can say for the future for right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for once again donating the game. And we will talk to you soon.